The weak one at the crosswalk. Out of the way, old man. You walk like you're already dead. That was the sentence, loud, cutting, and public. And then came the shove. A deliberate two-handed shove that knocked 91-year-old Jack Leland off balance. His cane skittered across the wet pavement as his worn leather shoes scraped the curb. He stumbled forward into the street just as a delivery truck slammed on its brakes horn, screaming through Kerrville's sleepy main square. Everything paused. The smell of rain, the screech of tires, the blur of the old man's body in motion. And then somehow, miraculously, Jack caught himself against the hood of a parked car. His breath heaved, his hands shook, but he didn't fall. The teenagers. They burst out laughing. Did you see him? One yelled. Bro thought he was still in Vietnam. Another one mock stumbled in slow motion, arms flailing like a cartoon character. The leader, a lanky boy in a black hoodie with bleached bangs and fake swagger, clapped his hands. Damn, Grandpa's got moves. Maybe you can still march. Not a single person stepped forward. A woman loading groceries stopped mid-motion. A man on his phone crossed to the other side of the street. Inside the bakery window, two employees turned away. Now pause. Right now. If you were standing there, what would you have done? Would you have helped him up, confronted the kids, or like so many, would you have looked the other way? Comment below. We want to know, where does respect begin and who deserves it most? Because Jack Leland wasn't just any old man. He was a Marine, a master sergeant who once led a platoon through Mogadishu's narrow alleys. A man who outlived war only to be humiliated on a Tuesday morning walk for lemon bars. But here's what the boys didn't know: Jack wasn't done marching. Not yet. He straightened slowly, one hand gripping the side mirror of the parked car. His cane lay a few feet away, splashed by rain and tire grime. He walked over, picked it up, and looked down the alley where the teens had disappeared, still laughing. His jaw was tight, not with rage, not even pain, but something older, something heavier. That's when Sarah Doyle appeared. 35, local high school teacher, auburn hair tied in a knot, tote bag of lesson plans in one hand, a half-dozen bruised apples in the other. Sir, are you hurt? She asked, crouching down beside him. That boy pushed you. I saw the whole thing. He could have killed you. Jack looked at her, blinked once, then said calmly, I'm fine. No, you're not, she said, rising voice trembling. That's assault. That's elder abuse. That's, Miss Jack interrupted gently. I've been shoved harder by the wind in Kandahar. Her mouth opened, then closed, then she nodded. She didn't understand, not really, but she respected it. Jack tipped his head. Thank you for stopping, and then he walked away. His apartment was 5 blocks east. Upstairs. 1 bedroom. Quiet. Decorated with 2 things: an old bookshelf of worn military biographies and a folded flag in a shadow box. He didn't have medals on the wall. He didn't need them. He made himself a black coffee, sat by the window. Rain trickled down the glass. The sound reminded him of a field hospital tent in Da Nang, the kind of place where silence meant someone had just died. He didn't cry, he just sipped. Once. Then opened the drawer beside him. Inside, a phone. Old, cracked screen. Only 5 contacts. He scrolled, stopped on one. USMC, Kerrville Station. He tapped, put the phone to his ear. 2 rings. Then a voice. Firm, young. Marine Corps recruited Pintis, recruiting station Kerrville. Staff Sergeant Miranda Cole speaking. Jack cleared his throat. This is Master Sergeant Jack Leland. Retired. Silence on the other end. Then a sharper tone. Yes, sir. How can I help you? Master Sergeant, I need to speak with someone about a situation. Go ahead. I was shoved into traffic today by a group of local boys. Sir, do you need medical assistance? Num. They attacked you? No. They laughed. Pause. Miranda didn't speak. She understood. They laughed, Jack repeated. At a Marine, another beat of silence. Then Miranda's voice dropped an octave. Do you have a location, Elm and Thompson? Right outside Lavelle's bakery. How many boys? 4. Maybe 5. One with bleached hair. Thought he was funny. I understand, sir. We'll be there within the hour. Jack ended the call, slid the phone back into the drawer. He didn't smile. He just picked up his cane, walked to the mirror, and straightened his collar. Then he stood at the window and waited. Down the street, the rain began to lighten. People passed by. Cars rolled through. And Jack Leland stood like a sentry in his own home, eyes steady, shoulders squared, watching a world that had forgotten him start to remember. The story wasn't over. In fact, it had just begun. A black government SUV rolled up quietly outside the Marine recruiting station. The door opened. Miranda Cole stepped out, full uniform, white gloves, and eyes like iron. Let's just say those boys wouldn't be laughing much longer. The call in silence. He didn't call the police, he called the Marines. And that's when everything changed. Inside the Marine Corps. Recruiting station in Kerrville, the mood was as routine as any quiet Thursday. A few pulley recruits, still weeks away from shipping out, were gathered in the back room, folding T-shirts, discussing PT scores and MRE flavor hacks. Sergeant Hensley was updating a wallboard of upcoming enlistments. Corporal Banks was checking emails on a government-locked laptop. Then the door to the comms office clicked open. Staff Sergeant Miranda Cole stepped out holding her phone tightly. The look on her face turned the air cold. She wasn't angry. She wasn't panicked. She was focused. All of you, front and center. The room froze. Her voice wasn't loud, but it had that unmistakable force. The kind of voice that says someone bled for this flag and today you'll remember why. When they lined up, Miranda didn't pace. She didn't bark. She simply spoke with the precision of someone who knew her duty and the weight of failing it. Master Sergeant Jack Leland was pushed into traffic this morning, on purpose, by a group of teenagers. They mocked him, they laughed, and then they walked away like nothing happened. No one breathed. You might not know the name, but you wouldn't be standing here if he hadn't done what he did in '93, Mogadishu. He led extraction during Operation Gothic Serpent. 3 of the men who trained me lived because of him. One of the pulley recruits raised his hand slightly. Ma'am, is he okay? He's fine, Miranda said, because he's a Marine. But this town forgot what that word means. She let that sentence settle. Let it hit deep. That ends today. With no further words, she motioned to the uniform rack. Dress blues, gloves. You've got 10 minutes. Outside, the clouds were thinning. Sunlight spilled across the sidewalk like a spotlight waiting for its cast. From his window, Jack Leland watched. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stood with his cane resting across his forearms the same way he'd once carried an M16 across a Cambodian riverbank. Down below, the station doors swung open, and that's when the town held its breath. They came out not like a mob, but like a memory. 8 Marines, 3 active duty, 5 recruits in PT gear, but marching like they'd already earned the Eagle Globe and Anchor. Miranda led them. Her stride was sharp. The flag pin on her lapel gleamed like a signal flare. Each step hit the pavement with the force of memory, with the rhythm of generations that had bled into sand, into snow, into jungle, so that others could scroll TikTok on a Thursday morning. Civilians stopped walking. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even traffic began to slow. If you were watching this right now, what would you have done? Would you follow behind, record it, or step aside in silence and let honor pass through? Drop the word honor in the comments if you believe what happened next should never be forgotten. At the edge of the alley where it all began, the teens were still there. Ethan Ricks leaned against a graffiti-tagged wall, flicking his lighter open and closed like some street-level king. His crew laughed over a video, one of them imitating Jack's stumble again, arms flapping stupidly. None of them noticed the silence. Not yet. Until the boots stopped at the alley's mouth. Miranda stood dead center, dress blues crisp and posture like stone. Two Marines flanked her, both silent. The laughter stopped. Ethan looked up, annoyed at first. "Can we help?" Then he saw the uniforms. He froze. The others followed his gaze. One by one, their smirks vanished. Shoulders dropped. Behind Miranda, the other 5 Marines entered the alley, closing the space like a noose tightening. No one shouted. No one raised a hand. Miranda spoke first, low, controlled, measured. "Do you know who that man was?" Ethan swallowed but didn't answer. That was Master Sergeant Jack Leland. He trained men who are now commandants. He carried out rescue missions when most of your fathers were still in high school. He buried his brothers in arms, and this morning he nearly got buried himself because of you. She stepped forward, only one step, enough to make them flinch. You didn't just push an old man, you desecrated a generation. You laughed at a legacy. The kid with the hoodie spoke up, voice cracking. It was a joke. Miranda cut him off with a single stare. "You think war is a joke?" No one dared respond. "Let me teach you something," she said, turning to the police recruits behind her. "Listen close. To be a Marine is to carry the weight of others. To fight so they don't have to. That man carried more than most, and today he walked alone." Then she turned back to the teens. Until now, the alley fell dead quiet. Then Jack's cane tapped once on the far sidewalk. All heads turned. He stood just across the street, alone, but somehow larger than all of them. Ethan's eyes darted, panicked. Jack didn't cross, didn't speak. He just lifted his hand, 2 fingers raised like a commander surveying troops. And every Marine turned, snapped heels together, and saluted. The sound of gloves slapping trousers echoed like gunshots. The teens didn't know whether to cry, run, or fall to their knees, but none of them spoke. Jack let his fingers fall, tapped the head of his cane twice, and walked away. No victory speech, no revenge, just justice, the kind that speaks without shouting. As the Marines turned to leave, Ethan dropped his lighter. No one bothered to pick it up. Miranda passed by last to exit. But before she left, she paused, looked Ethan in the eye and said, "Just loud enough. Start learning what respect feels like. Because next time, you'll be the one standing alone." They didn't move for minutes. Not because they were told to stay, but because they didn't know how to move anymore. Back across the street, Jack turned the corner toward the park. His shoulders didn't sag. His cane didn't tremble. If anything, his steps looked steadier. And from that day forward, nobody ever called him just an old man again. If you believe honor can still silence cruelty, subscribe now. We tell the stories others forgot. Because sometimes the quietest men carry the loudest truth. They didn't raise their fists, they raised the standard. The first sound that hit the boys wasn't a voice. It was the slap of 8 right hands against blue dress uniform trousers, Marines snapping to salute across the street at a man they once followed through mortar fire. A man those teenagers had just shoved into traffic. Ethan Ricks blinked. His throat was dry, his fake grin gone. His friends stood frozen beside him, no longer laughing. The Marine formation had left, but their presence still clung to the alley walls like smoke after a blast. And Jack Leland, he was gone. Not like someone who fled, but like someone who had already won. Ethan didn't know it yet, but that moment, that one moment, was the beginning of everything unraveling. Because when Marines move, the town moves too. That night, someone posted the footage. A woman in the bakery across the street had caught the entire alley confrontation on her phone. It started with a group of uniformed Marines silently walking into a narrow back street. Then silence. Then salutes. Then the camera panned across the street to a lone elderly man in a dark coat watching with a cane in his hand. She captioned it, "They didn't shout. They just stood." And the whole world listened. By morning, it had over 2 million views. And by noon, Ethan Ricks's name was trending. At first, he thought he could laugh it off. His friends told him, "It'll blow over. It's just internet stuff." But then the phone started ringing. Reporters called his parents. His school received threats. The local VFW hall made a statement, "We stand with Master Sergeant Leland." And then came the video. Not the bakery video, the other one. The one no one expected. A retired 3-star general, now a consultant for military veterans, uploaded a clip to his social media. It was only a minute long, no music, no edits. He stared into the camera and said, "That boy who was shoved, I know him. Jack Leland. He dragged my body out of a burning Humvee in Somalia. I would not be alive to raise my grandchildren if it weren't for that man. And today he got pushed into traffic by a child playing tough. You don't get to do that to a Marine and walk away proud." By sundown, Ethan's father, Director of Public Works, received an official petition from over 2,000 town residents demanding accountability. The mayor's office went silent. And then Jack spoke. But not to the press, not to a crowd, to one person, Sarah Doyle. She was the only one who had rushed to his side that morning, the only one who had asked, "Are you hurt?" when everyone else turned away. He invited her to coffee. She arrived at his apartment with a bag of pastries and too many questions. "I don't understand," she said gently. "Why didn't you press charges?" Jack looked at her, the lines in his face deep and unmoved. "I didn't want revenge," he said. "I wanted memory." He motioned to the bookshelf behind him, filled with faded unit patches, a few dusty biographies, and an old photograph of 6 Marines in a foxhole, smiling despite the mud and fire. "People forget," Jack said. "I'm not mad they pushed me. I'm mad they laughed, because they forgot who we were." Sarah sat back silent. Then he added, "But I didn't expect the Corps to answer my call like that. I thought they'd moved on." Sarah shook her head. "They didn't move on, Jack. They stood up. Meanwhile, Ethan was sinking. His teachers wouldn't make eye contact. His mother cried in the kitchen. His younger sister wouldn't ride to school with him anymore." But the worst moment came when his grandfather knocked on his bedroom door. Ethan opened it, expecting more scolding. But the man didn't yell. He didn't speak right away. He walked to Ethan's desk, picked up a dusty picture frame. Inside was a black and white photo of a young man in uniform, marine dress blues. "Do you even know who this is?" his grandfather asked. Ethan didn't answer. "That's your great uncle, killed in action." Vietnam, 1969. Jack Leland carried his body out of a rice field under sniper fire. Silence. "I never told you, because I didn't think it mattered. But now I see I failed to teach you the one thing I promised him before he shipped out. Never forget who stood so you could walk." Ethan's knees buckled. He sat down, and for the first time, he didn't feel tough. He felt ashamed. Back at the recruiting station, Miranda Cole stood with her pulley recruits. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She asked each one, "What did you learn yesterday?" One of them said that being a Marine isn't about muscle. Another, that silence can speak louder than fists. She nodded and then said, "You raised the standard yesterday, but now we carry it every day, every block, every stranger we pass." Outside, Jack walked past the bakery again. This time people stepped aside, not out of fear, Out of reverence, Joan, the bakery owner, came out with a fresh lemon bar in a paper box. On the house, she whispered, "I didn't speak up yesterday. I should have." Jack took the box, looked her in the eye. "You did today. That's what counts." He didn't need parades. He just needed presence. If you believe silence can be louder than shouting, drop the word standard in the comments. Because sometimes it's not about fighting harder, it's about standing straighter. And when a Marine stands, others follow. When a town learns to respect again, some scars are invisible, but they command more respect than a crown. The morning after the video hit national news, the people of Kerrville didn't wake up the same. The town looked the same: brick sidewalks, coffee shops, flags hanging from porches, but something had shifted. It wasn't just the headlines, it was the way people looked at each other. The silence that lingered between greetings, the weight of realizing they had let something sacred fall through the cracks. The bakery on Elm Street now had a laminated photo taped to its front window. It showed 8 Marines saluting across the street, and across from them a man with a cane standing tall, as if holding up the entire past. Below it, written in black ink, "Honor is not optional." Sarah Doyle walked by that photo on her way to school, her steps slower, heavier. At the first bell, she paused her history lecture and played the original footage for her students. No one dared speak during the 2 minutes of silence on screen. When it ended, she asked one question. "What do you think happens when we stop teaching?" Respect, one boy in the back, who normally didn't say much, raised his hand. "We start laughing at things that should make us stand." Sarah nodded. The lesson was over. Meanwhile, Ethan Ricks hadn't left his house in 48 hours. He deleted his social media. Messages flooded his inbox, some threats, some forgiveness, many just quiet questions. But it was the silence from his friends that echoed loudest. No texts, no calls, just absence. His parents tried to talk. His grandfather tried harder, but Ethan couldn't lift his eyes from the truth anymore. Then something strange happened. At the town hall that night, a meeting was scheduled to discuss the incident, as officials called it. Most thought it would be a quick discussion. A few citizens venting, a mayor giving some vague statement, then back to business. But that's not what happened, because Jack Leland showed up. He didn't walk with a group, he didn't bring the Marines. He came alone in his usual coat and khaki slacks, his cane tapping softly with every step, and when he entered the room, turned still. Mayor Ed Coulson cleared his throat, trying to regain control. "Let's keep this orderly. We're here to—" Jack didn't wait. He stepped forward. "I won't be long," he said. "I know many of you saw the video. Some of you sent letters, some apologized. I don't need those. I'm not here for anger. I'm here because this isn't about me. It's about what you didn't see." He paused. "You didn't see the nights I held men younger than those boys as they bled out, calling for their mothers. You didn't see what I left behind just to walk home through this town without a salute, without a glance, without a second of dignity, until I was pushed, and only then did anyone notice. No one made a sound. I'm not angry. I'm tired. And if this town has forgotten how to stand tall for those who stood for it, then the problem isn't the kids. It's the silence that raised them." He turned to leave. That would have been enough. But then someone stood. An elderly man in the back, VFW cap, trembling hands. Then another beside him. A woman in a wheelchair with an Air Force pin on her lapel. Then a middle-aged store owner. Then 3 high school students from Sarah's class. In seconds, half the room was on their feet. Standing, not clapping, just standing. Mayor Coulson froze. Then he cleared his throat again, softer now. "We'll be launching a formal recognition initiative for local veterans, starting immediately. But the crowd didn't respond to him. They were still watching Jack. The next morning, something else happened. Joan, the bakery owner, changed her sign out front. It no longer read Lavelle's Lemon Bar Specials. It now said, Veterans eat free. Always. The coffee shop followed, then the bookstore, then the barber shop run by twins who had both served in Desert Storm. They started a new movement. They called it Ashford Row, a stretch of Main Street where veterans would never pay, never wait, never be forgotten. And just when the town thought it had heard the last echo of that alley, another letter arrived, addressed to Jack. No return address. Inside, a folded paper. On it, handwritten in block letters, Sir, I was one of the boys. I am sorry. I cannot take back what I did. But I can choose who I become next. I've signed up. Ship date September 14th, Paris Island. Maybe one day I'll earn that salute. Jack folded the letter. He didn't smile. But he placed it inside the frame with the old photograph of his unit. He didn't need revenge. He had something far more powerful now, continuity. That evening, Sarah met him again by the park bench. You started something, she said. No, Jack replied. I reminded them. The wind picked up slightly. Leaves rustled underfoot. Across the street, someone held a door open for an old man with a walker. Another nodded and said, Semper Fi. And Jack, he just closed his eyes for a second. For the first time in years, he felt seen, not as a relic, not as a burden, but as a man who never stopped standing. If you believe respect isn't taught by lectures, but by example, drop the word dignity in the comments, because what this town learned, America must remember. And in Jack's silence, a generation stood taller. A symbol at the crosswalk. He used to march for a nation. Now he walks for something bigger. Memory. The sun was just beginning to rise over Kerrville when Jack Leland stepped out of his apartment in full view of the quiet town that had finally learned to see him. Same cane, same slow gait, but something in the air had changed. People didn't look past him anymore. They looked at him, they nodded, some placed hands over their hearts, and every now and then someone said what used to be forgotten. Thank you, Sergeant. It had been 2 weeks since the town meeting, 2 weeks since silence turned into standing, 2 weeks since the boy who shoved Jack had sent that letter, and now the town was ready to do something they hadn't done in decades. Not for a parade, not for a politician, but for a man who once asked only to pass peacefully on the sidewalk. That morning, the entire town gathered at the corner of Elm and Thompson. The mayor didn't speak first. Neither did the principal or the pastor. It was Sarah Doyle, the young teacher who had been there from the very beginning, who stepped forward to the microphone in front of the bakery. We're not unveiling a statue, she said. We're not naming a highway. We're doing something smaller but deeper, something no one will be able to ignore. From this day forward, this crosswalk will carry a new name. She turned to Jack, seated just feet away, dressed in his pressed khakis and marine lapel pin. We call it the Leland Line. The crowd erupted in gentle applause, not thunderous, but heartfelt. Behind Sarah, a new street sign was unveiled. It was modest. White letters on black steel, Master Sergeant Jack Leland Crosswalk. Then came the part no one expected. From the back of the crowd, Ethan Ricks appeared. He was alone. No camera crews, no parents, just a teenager in a plain white shirt and slacks. His hands were visibly trembling. The crowd turned silent as he walked up the aisle that had formed between townspeople. When he reached Jack, he stopped, looked him in the eye, and did something no one could have prepared for. He dropped to one knee. I was wrong, sir, Ethan said. I didn't know who you were. I didn't care who you were. And I can't fix what I did. But I want to learn what it means to be a man. If you'll let me. The old man said nothing at first. The wind rustled the trees overhead. Some in the crowd turned away to wipe their eyes. Others watched with breath held. Then Jack reached out, not with his hand, but with his cane. He placed the worn tip gently on Ethan's shoulder, and then nodded. Ethan rose slowly. He didn't smile. He didn't cry. He simply stood tall, maybe for the first time in his life. Later that day, the town held a small gathering at the park where Jack took his daily walks. Miranda Cole was there in uniform, standing beside a new bench that had been installed near the duck pond. On its backrest, engraved in metal, "To those who carried the nation on their backs, thank you for letting us walk forward." Jack didn't sit on it. He simply touched it, like it was a folded flag or an old friend's dog tag. The ceremony ended quietly. No marching band, no confetti, just families lingering, talking softer than usual, children holding their parents' hands a little tighter. But before Jack left, a group of young Marines, the same recruits who had stood beside Miranda that day in the alley, approached him. They formed a line. One by one they saluted, and one by one Jack returned the gesture. Slow, steady, measured. One of the recruits leaned in, barely audible. "We signed up because of you, sir." Jack didn't answer with words. He just placed a small folded note into the boy's hand. Later, the recruit would open it and read a single sentence, "Never forget who you're walking for." That evening, as dusk settled over the town, Jack returned to the same crosswalk. No ceremony now. No crowd. Just him. One step at a time, his cane tapping on the newly painted lines. The traffic paused, not because of a light, because people saw him and stopped. No horns, no rush, just quiet. And as he crossed, something subtle happened. A little girl on the other side, maybe 7 or 8, turned to her mother and asked, "Is that the soldier who saved the town?" Her mother smiled gently. "No, sweetie. He's the one who reminded us how to save ourselves." Jack heard it. But he didn't turn around. He just kept walking. If this story moved something inside you, if it reminded you of someone you love, someone you've lost, or someone you still need to thank, drop the word legacy in the comments. Because some men leave behind more than medals. They leave behind a standard, a memory, a way forward. And as long as one foot still steps after the other, as long as one heart still remembers, no veteran ever truly walks alone. So here's the question we leave you with. In your town, at your crosswalk, would you have stopped or looked away? If this story moved you, hit subscribe to hear more voices that the world almost forgot. Let gratitude speak before silence makes us forget who once stood for us.